Coming up on Jerusalem Dateline, the UN Security Council approves President Trump's administration's plan for the future of Gaza. That while Trump announces the sale of F-35s to Saudi Arabia before his meeting with Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman. And a news giant, the BBC, forced to eat crow after the exposure of blatantly biased coverage. Plus, a journey of healing. Hostages getting their health back after release from Hamas captivity. And CBN Israel helping one special community in the land. All this and more coming up on this edition of Jerusalem Dateline. Hello and welcome to this edition of Jerusalem Dateline. I'm Chris Mitchell. A new era in the Middle East arrives as the United Nations votes overwhelmingly to support President Donald Trump's Gaza peace plan. This comes as Russian leader Vladimir Putin weighed in on his own plan. And the U.S. announced intentions to sell F-35s to Saudi Arabia. And here in Israel, a special tribute to Charlie Kirk. Here's the latest on these and other stories.
On the eve of a critical UN Security Council vote on President Trump's international stabilization plan, Prime Minister Netanyahu issued a warning in his cabinet meeting. He said no plan should open the door for a Palestinian state.
I've been resisting these attempts for decades and have been doing so in the face of both external and internal pressures. So I do not need reinforcements and tweets and lectures from anyone.
He also said that Hamas will be demilitarized the hard way or the easy way with the support of President Trump. Hamas issued a statement ahead of the vote, saying any disarmament violates the right to resistance and Palestinian sovereignty. Sunday night, Israel honored a fallen ally in Jerusalem. More than 100 people turned out to pay tribute to Charlie Kirk, with music and multiple speakers sharing their memories.
It is hard to believe that Charlie Kirk is no longer with us. The world is quieter, less challenging place without his voice.
Kirk made clear his love for the Holy Land, and on this night, people here, even Orthodox Jews, gathered to show their love for him.
Charlie Kirk was a giant. He was a giant.
Kirk was quoted as saying that when he came here to Israel, he came in contact with the living God, and the Bible came to life. That's why he says his favorite trip he ever took was to Israel, and the second favorite trip he ever took was to Israel.
The first guest I invited as a minister to speak at our upcoming international conference on combating anti-Semitism.
Speakers shared how Kirk learned the importance of observing the Sabbath and became a staunch advocate for Israel.
I am very pro-Israel as far as the promise of the Jewish people, 7 million individuals out of 14, having a home. I believe that is an idea that needs to be defended, a Jewish state in the Middle East.
The program included a live question-answer segment moderated by CBN's Chris Mitchell, who spoke with Kirk's pastor and spiritual advisor, Rob McCoy.
Charlie looked at politics as an on-ramp to Christianity. He figured if he could get these young people rowing in the streams of liberty, they'd come to its source.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu agreed with many Americans when he posted on X that Charlie Kirk was murdered for speaking truth and defending freedom. Netanyahu says he talked to Kirk 2 weeks before his assassination and invited him to Israel. That visit never took place. With the approval of the United Nations Security Council, the authorization of a new international stabilization force could deploy inside the Gaza Strip within weeks. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu welcomed the vote and said the plan will lead to peace and prosperity. 13 of the 15 council members backed Trump's Gaza peace plan. Russia and China abstained. Trump celebrated the vote on Truth Social, calling it one of the biggest approvals in the history of the United Nations, and saying it will lead to further peace all over the world.
Despite the pressure of many members of this very council, despite the political theater, the condemnations, and the hypocrisy, Israel stood firm. We did not waver. We prevailed.
The resolution includes Trump's 20-point roadmap for Gaza's future, a plan U.S. Ambassador to the UN Mike Waltz says could chart a pathway to Palestinian self-determination. The Palestinian Authority welcomed the UN decision, but Hamas slammed it, calling it an attempt to impose international trusteeship on Gaza and using force to disarm what it calls the resistance.
And simply put, Hamas is finished in Gaza and does not have a future there. And if they do not follow through, they are in violation of the ceasefire and will face consequences, severe consequences.
President Trump is also strengthening security ties with Saudi Arabia, announcing he's prepared to approve the sale of F-35 fighter jets to the kingdom, a first in the region outside Israel. Israel has not opposed the sale, but wants a key condition attached, aimed at normalizing relations between the two countries.
My view is that we should not provide America's most advanced aircraft, a fighter jet, to a country that refuses to recognize our best and most reliable ally in the Middle East, and that is Israel.
Today, President Trump welcomed Saudi Arabia's Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman to the White House. Paul Petit, CBN News, Jerusalem.
Fallout at the British Broadcasting Corporation continues after two top bosses resigned following a leaked memo. It indicated bias, failures, and anti-Semitism in the BBC's Israel-Hamas coverage, as well as a doctored clip of President Trump from January 6. CBN's Paul Petit has the story.
The BBC, once considered a standard bearer of journalism, is in crisis mode.
Mistakes are made, but there's no institutional bias.
Turnus and other senior executives stepped down after the leak that critics say shows the UK broadcaster is biased.
While this may have come as a shock to people, it definitely wasn't to honest reporting. We've been complaining about the BBC for many years now.
The backbreaker came after an edit in a documentary aired on the network. The memo pointed out separate parts of President Trump's speech on January 6th had been edited to make it appear he was inciting a riot. Here is the BBC edited version, followed by the original clip.
We're going to walk down to the Capitol, and I'll be there with you, and we fight. We fight like hell. We're going to walk down to the Capitol, and we're going to cheer on our brave senators and congressmen and women.
And I think that the president was deeply concerned by the editing, the purposeful and dishonest editing of his speech that was so clearly fake news. And he rightfully dubbed that term many years ago, and this is a classic example of that.
The BBC chairman apologized, calling the edit an error of judgment. It also prompted a $1 billion lawsuit threat from President Trump and led to the two resignations.
In hindsight, we should have acted earlier and taken a more formal position on it, which we've done more recently.
The edit, however, is only part of the story. For months, allegations of bias have risen over the BBC's coverage of Israel's war against Hamas, especially by BBC Arabic.
I think the BBC has really become a propaganda tool for the most radical left and Islamists in the UK. Very sad.
Dr. Charles Asher Small, an expert on the study of anti-Semitism, recently addressed the European Parliament in Brussels on the subject.
Jew hatred is not a parochial problem for the Jewish people or for the state of Israel. It's sort of an early warning system for things that are going awry in society, and that once anti-Semitism, this very potent form of hatred, is unleashed, it knows no bounds.
Researchers, watchdogs, even the Israeli embassy in the UK have flagged BBC Arabic, leading it to issue hundreds of corrections on Gaza stories.
They tried to cover it up before, but I guess the evidence was just too compelling from them to hide it. I do hope that not only the BBC, but many other international media outlets will take a lesson.
According to the leaked memo that started the firestorm, the litany of examples include BBC Main News posting 19 stories about Israeli hostages taken by Hamas on October 7th. On BBC Arabic, there was no mention of hostages. By contrast, each article criticizing Israel on BBC News English was replicated on BBC Arabic.
This is journalists seeking to damage Israel's reputation, knowing facts, knowing they're omitting things and doing it anyway because they hold a personal animosity towards the state of Israel.
This is the new normalized discourse among the radical left. We call this the Red-Green Alliance. The radical left wants to rid the world of Western influence around the world, and radical Islamists want to destroy the state and any vestiges of Christianity and Judaism and create a caliphate.
The BBC also pulled a high-profile Gaza documentary after reports its Gaza child narrator was the son of a Hamas official.
It took some time for the BBC to actually pull the documentary. We must wonder, how was it that this child was the one that was chosen? You managed to find a boy who's the son of a senior Hamas commander.
After these fumbles, the BBC chair has promised internal reviews, more oversight, and greater transparency to restore trust and credibility, which has taken a hit.
I think the only thing that really forced the BBC into making the kinds of changes to win back that trust would be abolishing the license fee.
O'Donoghue also questions whether the BBC can be trusted to police itself.
There is a systemic problem, and for Turness to say otherwise is simply disingenuous.
In Jerusalem, Paul Petit, CBN News.
In October, the last live hostages were all released from Hamas captivity. They landed in 3 hospitals where they were thoroughly checked and treated and given psychological care before being released. But that's just the beginning of their treatment. CBN's Julie Stahl has more.
Doctors at the Rabin Medical Center recently turned off the lights in its hostage care unit as the last living hostage released left for home.
It's a lot more complicated than the pictures, of course. The minute they come back, the first thing we do is we actually see that there is nothing, that there's no emergency, medical emergency or mental emergency.
During the last 2 years, doctors here treated 40 returning hostages, including 5 of the last 20 Hamas released in October.
We hear terrible stories. We hear stories that you can't sleep at night after hearing, and some of them were kept in such small spaces they couldn't even stretch their hands. The food that they were eating or not eating, the variety, everything affects their physical and mental state.
Professor Noah Eliakim Raz, who oversaw the unit here, says the medical staff had to learn and develop protocols as they went along.
It's new medicine, of course. There is not a hostages medicine. It's not a field that you learn in medical school.
Raz told CBN News while doctors thoroughly checked their newly freed patients, just dealing with injuries from October 7th can revive the trauma. And leaving the hospital is not the end of the journey.
Some of the returnees that returned more than 6 months ago are still going through medical procedures, surgeries. It can teach us about the situation. The fact that people are standing and smiling when they come back home is only a small part of the puzzle.
Alon Ohel spent 2 years in captivity. Wounded on October 7th, he did not receive treatment and suffered harsh conditions in tunnels, including starvation. Alon recently returned to the hospital for orthopedic and exceptional eye surgeries.
The moment we realized that it might be possible to restore Alon's sight, this was an emotional moment and a very remarkable one.
The surgeries were a success. New York physician Dr. Mark Siegel, an internal medicine specialist, told CBN News it's a wonder the hostages survived. He says mental recovery takes longer than the physical.
Dehumanization, depersonalization, nightmares, severe anxiety, post-traumatic stress disorder, they're being handled right now with kindness, with compassion. Their families are playing a huge role at nursing them back to health. The sensitivity that it takes to deal with someone in this condition is extremely important.
Professor Raz helped treat the mothers and a grandmother who came out as part of the first hostage release in November 2023.
The resilience and strength that these mothers showed is impossible to capture.
She praises the creativity used by the hostages to train their brains to learn things while in captivity.
You hear incredible stories about how they trained themselves to keep track of time, They know to tell you exactly dates and hours of things they did in captivity. And it's unbelievable. Everyone held on to something that gave him hope.
She adds that the suffering the hostages endured can affect their health and lives for decades.
And you can see that not only psychological influence, but also physical influences, more heart disease, more dental problems, and even premature aging, even 4 decades forward. So the body remembers.
They will need to receive further care for years with the goal of building resilience.
The main thing is to bring them back to life. And the goals are very different and change from one to the other. For one person, going back to life is running a family, and for the other, it's playing the piano, and for the third one is going back to the army.
Families play an essential role in the rehabilitation process. Roz likens it almost to giving birth.
They get this person back. They don't really know what to expect. It's learning each other again. They are different, and the returnees are different. The families change too.
She says the staff felt privileged to work with the hostages. Her hope is that Israelis as a whole will learn from this crisis the importance of being a community and working together. Julie Stahl, CBN News, Jerusalem.
For those with hearing challenges, communication is key, which sometimes can be lost in translation. CBN Israel has partnered with a local deaf association to develop a technology to help them be heard. Take a look.
A community's strength is in its story. For the deaf community in Israel, that story is being told like never before. With the help of CBN Israel, the Association for the Deaf is not only documenting a rich history, but also developing life-saving technology to ensure the community is protected and heard, always.
We work here together, deaf people, hearing people, hard of hearing people. So we are showing that with communication, with true communication, we can work together, live together, and give a place to one another. In the programs that we do for the social community, we are also showing the history of the deaf community in Israel. Whether it's in stories of Jewish deaf people that were in the Holocaust, or people who survived the Holocaust and came here in the Aliyah even before Israel was founded. And in those stories, we are taking those testimonies, we write them down, and then we video ourselves to show it and to keep this tradition, to show it to the younger generation. Also to the community of the deaf people and also to the hearing society outside.
This project is really exciting for me. It really connects me to the Jewish tradition. There's a sentence behind me that says that people who don't know their past, their present is very poor, and their future is vague. I am sitting with people who actually survived the Holocaust, and they're telling me their stories, they're telling me about what happened at that time. I am trying to bring up that time from the 40s until now, bring up their experience and transfer it to my feelings right now, and doing it in sign language. It really touches my heart.
It is surprising to experience what life is like in a world without sound. CBN Israel staff learned basic sign language and experienced their daily challenges firsthand. We even got to test our wits in the only escape room in Israel designed by and for the deaf.
So this morning, for example, we had a siren and we were in the car, and I saw this woman coming out of the car, and I thought, what is happening to her? Why is she leaving the car? We saw that she's going outside and lying on the floor, and I saw another person doing it, and another person. That's how I understood that there's a siren. But we also have a smartwatch. I have a smartwatch that is connected to apps, that is connected to the phones, but we always get it a little bit with a delay.
There is a lot of help, such as technological support, building apps, and generally being very creative in this situation. What we want is so that we could partner with the rest of society. So I really hope that there are ideas out there, maybe from people abroad, that can help us.
That we, the deaf community, we know the best what suits us. And we need that people will believe in us and know that we can do it, that we can do all things. And this is the cooperation, this is what is good with the work that we do together with CBN. you basically caught the vacuum that was missing for us. And it was a big, big vacuum. And you caught it, and you helped us with this. And this cooperation, this work together, is actually good for both sides.
We learned their language, saw their strength, and discovered a powerful truth. A world without sound is not silent. It is a world full of stories, of hope, and of a future that is just beginning to be heard.
What a wonderful story of CBN Israel extending support to the deaf community. Well, that's all for this edition of Jerusalem Dateline. Thanks for joining us. Remember, you can follow us on social media, and you can also access CBN content through our CBN News and other CBN apps. And don't forget to sign up for our email blasts so you can continue to receive CBN content. And in light of current events in the U.S. and Israel, we leave you with a scripture from Psalm chapter 2, verses 1 through 6. Why do the nations conspire and the peoples plot in vain? The kings of the earth rise up, and the rulers band together against the Lord and against his anointed, saying, let us break their chains and throw off their shackles. The one enthroned in heaven laughs. The Lord scoffs at them. He rebukes them in his anger and terrifies them in his wrath, saying, I have installed my king on Zion, my holy mountain. Well, please keep praying for the Middle East and for leaders making decisions about Israel's sovereignty and how it will move forward in a post-war world. And as always, pray for the peace of Jerusalem and for all those caught in harm's way. I'm Chris Mitchell. For all of us here in the Jerusalem Bureau, we'll see you next time on Jerusalem Dateline.